We're looking at what's now being dubbed the Tweetweiler affair. The first partner of France, she's not the first lady, they're not married, Valérie Trierweiler, who supported in a tweet a dissident socialist who's running next Sunday in a runoff against her ex's former partner, Ségolène Royal, who's hoping to become the Speaker of the next National Assembly. That's all very much up in the air. With us to talk about it is Stephen Clark, who's the author of 1,000 Years of Annoying the French. Also with us, Aude Baron of Le Plus, the interactive website of the Nouvel Observateur, the French news weekly magazine, where Denis de Maupion is a columnist. And also with us, Freddie Winkler of the Paris office of the ad agency, J. Walter Thompson. That runoff we were discussing, despite the president and the party very publicly supporting Ségolène Royal, well, a new poll, and Denis de Maupion was talking about this before the break, now has the dissident socialist Faroni on 58% to 42% for Royal, leaving the woman who wanted to be Speaker of the Assembly with no other option than to put up a brave face.
Of course, the president supports me, not only because I'm the candidate endorsed by the party, with the backing of the mayor and incumbent MP of La Rochelle, who doesn't want to work with people who have stirred up confrontations, but also because I came out on top in the first round.
It's a lovely message of friendship for which I'm grateful. It wasn't expected, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
As for the right, we haven't talked much about the right in all of this. The right in a slump after Nicolas Sarkozy's loss in the presidential election, divided over how to handle the far-right National Front. Suddenly, they've got something to smile about.
I don't know what François Hollande's going to be telling her back home, but I think this girl has cojones.
His Twitter account, a politician from the Nice area, Eric Ciotti, who is pitted to win his runoff next Sunday, saying, let's send the socialists to the theater rather than to parliament. They're good at one thing, making us laugh. So they're all having a good laugh about it. But again, Denis de Maupion, the right shouldn't laugh too hard. They've got problems of their own.
Indeed, because it's very unlikely they will win the election this Sunday. And they have great problem because in many constituencies they have the National Front that's running against them, and they will probably lose quite a few seats in the election. And it's clearly not sure, but very likely that Hollande will have his majority.
In the age, Aude Baron, of short news cycles, the big issue of the campaign, which was to be what attitude to have in the face of a surging far right, is that going to come back to the fore between now and Sunday? Or is it going to be very much the Trierweiler affair is going to keep on going?
Well, in the media, I guess, the Trierweiler affair is going, we are going to be busy until Sunday at least, but when you look at the legislative election, it's a local election, so we are talking about, a national debate, but I guess many French people, they also read the local newspaper to see what's happening in their city, but obviously, nationally, this affair has become just so huge, and when you look at on the social networks, either on Facebook, on Twitter, or on the blogs, people only talk about it because it's just huge.
What does this say about Hollande? That's the question we put to you, by the way, on Twitter. And here are just some of the comments. It says volumes, according to our colleague John Gizzi of U.S. conservative paper Human Events. This is what his wife Colleen refers to as needless aggravation. While Christiane says, this is politics mixed with family business, French democracy for you. Freddie Winkler, again, the French, we've had with politician scandals. This is playing to stereotypes a little bit.
Yes, because I think we've had some of that in the States as well, with family scandals as well. I think right now, with the way media works, is your entire family is extremely exposed. So, whatever you do, your family is there around you. It's quite rare. I think probably Angela Merkel, you're right, is one of the rare ones where you don't really know what happens to the other one. But for most of the other people, when Tony Blair had kids, we had all the pictures of the kids in front of 10 Downing Street. So it's a normal thing. What happens, I think, which is important here, is that it's the first time in this election, not the presidential, but this election, that something's happening. You know, we've had an election that hasn't interested people. We had almost half of the people not going to vote. So that really shows that, you know, the only thing that people are catching on right now is a little story about the president's wife, which is a little sad because it means that the level of the political debate so far has not been very high, and there's unlikely there's going to be much else to come until Sunday.
But the role of the First Lady, as we were saying in part one, it is important. When François Hollande billed himself as Monsieur Normal, it was in part a reaction to Inauguration Day, 2007. The then First Lady, Cécilia Sarkozy, seems to rebuke a little bit that public display of affection. This just days after she was a no-show when her husband went to vote. She'd soon be gone from the presidential palace, replaced by former supermodel turned pop singer Carla Bruni, who married Sarkozy after a whirlwind courtship. The British press lapped it up when Bruni made her first official trip to England, but many French voters seem to frown on all of this. But Denis de Maupion, before up to then, you know, we talked about France as this place where it was once there was a president, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who had a traffic accident when he was with his mistress, and his popularity went up after the traffic accident. The French actually not so carefree as it seems when it comes to how the First Lady should handle herself.
No, that's true. That's why this Tweedveiler story should not affect the vote on Sunday, because it's in a way very local. It will have to do, you know, with Ségolène, and I don't think the rest of the French people are more amused today than anything else of the fact that she tweeted to the dissident from the Socialist Party. And but you're right to say that French people are not like American ones. They tend to laugh. And as for Hollande, who calls himself a normal man, he's not quite. Not only because he's the president, but as well because he's the first president not to be married. And up to now, when it was the case of Sarkozy, for instance, when he was elected, he married. He divorced just a few months after he entered the Élysée Palace, and then he managed to marry quickly again with Carla Bruni. That was all very new, and then people got really tired, and very quickly tired, of that, you know, family spectacle and show, permanent show. And as a matter of fact, what they will consider if Hollande, Tweedveiler goes on, you know, showing off their privacy and private life, that might turn really against Hollande in the end, I guess.
We have different First Ladies. Do they play to different expectations, obviously, of their respective countries? As Denis was saying, the French First Lady is not a First Lady, but a first partner, unmarried.
She's still a lady, as far as we know.
Michelle Obama in the United States, who's, you know...
very classic First Lady, yeah.
Very classic First Lady. Samantha Cameron in the UK, perhaps less to the fore when it comes to politics.
Oh, she's very present in the newspapers. I mean, let's not forget that the first French First Lady wrote a tweet. The English couple, the Camerons, forgot their daughter in a pub. They left her in the pub toilets. That's a bit more serious than a tweet, I think. But, you know, it's a bit more embarrassing for the first couple than a tweet. But, yeah, I mean, it's true that France has now got itself a very modern, you know, unmarried president with a obviously rather single-minded First Lady. Perhaps, you know, French politicians are going to have to deal with this now rather than in the past. Up until Madame Chirac, the French First Ladies had they'd been sort of martyrs to the cause, really, because everyone knew their husbands had mistresses. You know, Monsieur Mitterrand even had a love child and everything, and the First Ladies just had to smile and shake hands and be First Ladies. Now you've got someone with a bit more sort of personality. Maybe the French presidents are going to have to be more like Mr. Normal and actually deal with their couple rather than just sort of ignoring the relationship.
Deal with their couple, and also, you know, Aude Baron, up to now, French politicians, when it suited them, they'd have the glossy spread with the wife and kids and the dog. And when they didn't suit them, they would sue and make sure that those pictures didn't get in the papers. What's in light of what Stephen Clark's describing, is this going to keep politicians more honest? Is it going to force them to, you know, be more open about their personal lives?
well, more honest, or maybe just have a different communication. And maybe in the case of Valérie Trierweiler, there's a way of the independence of the wife. What can she do? And I think when you look at the public opinion, people they're open to see a first lady who is working. The only problem is when there's a conflict of interest, which is the case of Valérie Trierweiler. And Denis was saying at the beginning of the show that she's a journalist, but in the same time she has a bureau at the Élysée Palace. So can you be a journalist and in the same time working?
And what's the answer?
Obviously, for me, it's no. How can you be a journalist if at the same time you have a team, in the corridor of the Élysée Palace? How can you just be independent? And even, she just proved it with the first article she published in Paris Match. And the first sentence, was just saying something like, Eleanor Roosevelt, at least, she could be independent. And of course, it was a mirror to our own situation.
And Stephen Clark, do you agree?
I don't see why a first lady. I mean, after all, the president doesn't keep his sort of day job. So why, if the first lady has a real political role, maybe she should, be a first lady as a job. Like Michelle Obama, it's almost like her full-time job representing her country. Monsieur Merkel, Herr Merkel, he's a bit of he's sort of way in the background and completely invisible. But other countries like France has sort of become more modern and it's got this more sort of American-style presidential elections now. Maybe if they want to elevate the first lady to a very visible position, maybe it has to be a job, a real role, not necessarily political, but a real sort of representing the country role. In which case, like all servants of a government, the politicians can't say exactly what they think, and when they do, Monsieur Sarkozy had a problem with two ministers of the interior in a row, one who said some cultures are superior to others, and the other one who was on YouTube making racist remarks. I mean, politicians have to be careful what they say. Maybe the First Lady does as well. It's a political role almost.
On this point, Freddie Winkler, are you surprised that it's been more than 24 hours and we haven't heard from the president himself?
No, I'm not too surprised. I think that he was going to take that as a private matter to sort with her, rather than have to talk. If he talks outside, he's going to make it into a big thing. And importantly, what it does as well is it then puts into question his leadership. Because, the right wing made a lot of campaign about the fact that he was a softie and flamby, we called him.
It's like a Jello pudding.
Jello. So, this is actually showing that he's not controlling her. So if he makes a public appearance, that is making a statement that he's not. And
so how should he handle it? What should he do?
I think he should just talk about the next thing. Worry about the election, talk about the next thing.
He has, by the way, he's commented on Greece and the Greek election.
That's I keep on the job. This is not going to take me away from that. And I think he has something personal to deal with her because the first lady is a job, whether you want it or not. Yes, it's going to push more transparency because that's what the web does, because you're talking on the spur of the moment, and that's uncontrolled. He did ask, by the way, that his ministers be careful with Twitter and start to take away from that. So I think he's going to probably want to say something to her about that as well. Because what she does is going to affect him in the long term, and that he cannot afford to be seen as someone who cannot control what happens home. On the other side, I think it's right that the First Lady can remain independent, like every couple today.
But between Trierweiler, who does what she sees fit, and Le Monde, which, as we said, the newspaper suggesting that she shunned the Twitter entirely, there's a middle road, of course, carefully vetted accounts. Now, we took a look earlier at the Twitter feed of one Michelle Obama, and there we saw messages that are political, very much so, like thanks for your support at rallies, messages to celebrities, and to show that it's actually her sending the tweet, by the way, she signs the tweet with little M-O. And then, yes, politicians' private lives are game when they play in the interested party's favor. You see there she posts a picture of a more youthful time for the presidential couple. Denis de Maupion, we've been talking about how the French don't really get necessarily how to use social media. Are you surprised that these accounts aren't properly vetted and properly, carefully crafted at this point? We're only beginning to see that?
I think the French people are more Well, in the case of Trier-Wehler, it's something very special because it is the first time you see a first lady who is interfering in politics that has to do with the former partner of the president. This is all new. I mean, we had never a situation like that. Stefan was mentioning Michelle Obama and the role she held, with her husband, but she never make any mistake of the kind. She, she's not in a situation where she wants to deserve such and such, and she just very, she appears. She tries to promote the states and women and the way they should be, and to keep a certain standard, and that's all. As for Trier-Wehler, there's something just incomprehensible, and I guess if she keeps on doing that, Holland will have a hard time. And I think the best he has to do is to tell her to shut up, I think.
You can't say that to all. You can't, even if you're French, you can't say that to all women. Sorry about that. No, but didn't Carla Bruni made a statement like a year ago or so saying that she didn't want her husband to stand again for election? First ladies in recent times, well, very recent times, have made statements like this. It's not the first time. It's just that the modern world is catching up with French politicians, which may not be a bad thing, because in the past, it's true, Madame Chirac, you never heard her say anything except, bonjour, nothing about, all these rumours about what her husband was getting up to, not a word, But those days are over now, and you can't tell a woman to shut up. I know because I've tried. So.
I think what's surprising here, it's basically a beginner's mistake for me. Beginner's mistake in terms of First Lady, and that she's going to have seen now, and she has the evidence that what she says has an impact on her husband and on politics and is just not left to Twitter. It's also a Twitter beginner's mistake. Because when you get used to Twitter, that you have to use it, she's a journalist, it's almost like having your magazine. So like Michelle Obama, she has a line of thought, a very clear line, like a redactor-in-chief, she has to vet what she does herself, and the way she's going to speak. So this is probably what she has to get used to, is her Twitter is like her official magazine, and she has to decide what line of speech she wants to take and what's going to be interesting, because it's, you can't, if you vet everything, you become boring, like a lot of the politicians have been very boring on Twitter.
Certainly for now, French politics isn't becoming any more boring, and that's good for us in any case. Freddie Winkler, I want to thank you. I want to thank Denis de Montpion, Stephen Clark, and Aude Baron. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, Will Edwards with all the latest business news.